Okay, we've got people entering the room right now. Good morning, everybody, depending on where you're at. Pacific time, it's 11:30. We are getting started here and see a lot of familiar names on the attendee list. So past clients, friends, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate you spending the time. My name is Scott Fuller. I'm the founder of leavingthebayarea.com and leavingsocal.com. And what we do is we simplify the process of buying, selling, and relocating, make it very easy for you because it can be very overwhelming. Super, super excited today. We've got an awesome topic that I'm particularly interested in and I love. And it's going to be talking about investing in short-term rentals. And we're going to be talking about the Phoenix metro area. A lot of people think, okay, we're just talking about the city of Phoenix. No, Phoenix is huge. And, I think we're pushing north of 4.5 million people right now, and a lot more people coming in. It encompasses a lot of cities, a lot of great opportunities for investors. Want to introduce my panelists today, Jonas Funston, Ashley McCaffrey with the Epic Phoenix Real Estate Team, and also a Phoenix Relocation Source. So I want to pass it over to you guys. Introduce yourselves real quick. I know that we've gone way back. We're personal friends, and we've helped a lot of people. So Jonas, why don't you kick us off and let us know kind of where you come from and what your background is?
Absolutely. Super excited to be here. So thank you so much, Scott, for having me and Ashley on today. So I'm actually a relocation, a California refugee, as I like to say myself. Grew up in San Diego, been out here in Metro Phoenix for about 18 years. Been in real estate out here for 17 of those 18. And I've been doing, participating in the vacation rental space for over 10, 11 years now. So I'm a personal investor myself, as well as Ashley. So, when we're assisting clients and we're, talking about kind of what to do, what not to do, and what to expect, this is actual firsthand experience. This isn't like, let us show you how to spend your money and that sort of thing. This is, practical advice as far as what we're actually doing. Phoenix is a dynamic market, as you know. We've done a lot of cross deals with people looking to relocate here. And then we, have a lot of people that are kind of dipping their toe in either on the investment space, or sometimes they maybe want to relocate here in a couple of years. So they look at maybe buying either a straight investment property or a vacation rental as a great kind of stepping stone transition property that maybe they can lock something down sooner than later and start building equity and have tenants pay it down and tax benefits, and then maybe eventually move over to actually utilize it themselves, either full-time or seasonally. So
that's a great point, Jonas, because as we see, prices are continuing to go up with the number of people coming into the area, and also interest rates going up. Sometimes, you might want to lock in something, and then you have a variety of different uses for the property. So that's a great point. Couple housekeeping items real quick. This is being recorded. So for some reason, if you have to bounce off the session, feel free to email us, info@leavingthebayarea.com, info@leavingthebayarea.com. Happy to send you a copy. Maybe you know somebody who would find some value in this as well. We hope that's the case. So if it is, feel free to request a copy from us, and we're happy to send it over to them. We want to make sure we answer all of your questions today. So we have this little Q&A box that you're going to find. If you haven't used it before, on your Zoom screen, there's a button towards the bottom that has the 3 dots and it says more. If you click that, and it might be somewhere else as a participant, but there's a Q&A section where you can go into Q&A, ask us a question, and we'll make sure we get it answered for you. So again, appreciate everybody's time today. We're going to try to keep this under an hour. We've got a lot of stuff to cover, so let's kind of dive in right now. Jonas, let's get into, kind of why Phoenix. I mean, a lot of people, they have different, they have options, right, for investing. And so there's a lot of good markets out there. Tell us a little bit about what's happening in the Phoenix metro area, why it's becoming such a popular area outside of just, kind of the investment side of it.
Absolutely. So Phoenix has really reinvented itself, I would say. That's probably the best way to put it. Rise from the ashes, as you will, to kind of, tied to the Phoenix name there. When I moved here many years ago, it was a very different environment, climate as far as economically and kind of, job growth and companies that were here. We initially moved to Chandler. Half of Chandler wasn't even built out at that time. The freeways, half the freeways weren't even here. And it's been amazing to see it kind of, evolve into this robust environment. A big driving factor is, the cost of living, the favorable tax climate, The overall quality of life, even with home prices, going up at the pace that they've been going, because Phoenix has been leading the nation, pretty consistently the past couple of years, kind of, head and head with Austin last year. Austin kind of overtook us, but there's just a lot of companies and individuals coming here. So we're seeing a lot of that clearly from California, but we're seeing multi-state, multinational. When I first moved here, one of the biggest reasons why Phoenix was hit so hard after the housing crisis was it was predominantly reliant on housing, construction, hospitality. You know what I mean? Since then, it's basically transformed. We are a massive, I don't know if those listening have heard the Silicon Valley of the desert. We are a huge tech hub. We are a huge hub for electric vehicles and automated self-driving vehicles. Data centers are huge here. We're like number 3 for financial services. Education sector is massive. So the economy is just really transformed, and it's driving people in here because there's an abundance of jobs, and companies on the flip side have an abundance of employees because of our education system, which Ashley could probably tie into a little bit more. But it's just kind of this beautiful machine that's been built over the past decade.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, obviously I'm partial to Phoenix, and for our attendees on the call today, after 35 years of being in California, I've lived all up in Northern California, Southern California. I moved our family out to the Phoenix metro area about 2 years and absolutely love it. So I'm a little bit partial. So I follow the news, and, really, it's literally every week there's a new announcement of a company that's coming in that is opening up operations, and it's so diversified. Just like you said, Jonas, 10, 15 years ago, the landscape was completely different.
Well, just real quickly, just to rattle off a few. Intel has had a presence here since the 90s. We already have about 12,000 employees. Within a couple of weeks of one another, Intel announced that they were doing a $20 billion foundry out here, which is going to be one of the largest in the world for microchips. Taiwan Semiconductor is building their first here. They're doing a $12 billion facility. Mayo Clinic, which is up in North Phoenix, they already have a huge presence here. They've been expanding operations, and they're going to be adding a new campus. It's going to be almost $750 million. And then just this past week or so, I actually live on the Queen Creek Gilbert border. They just had an announcement that LG is going to be coming into to Queen Creek, and that's going to be a $2.8 billion facility. So we're not talking about $1 million facilities. We're talking about multi-billion dollar facilities, and these are high-paying jobs. These are attracting a lot of talent, you know what I mean? Because it's easy to attract and retain talent, but we can go on and on as far as kind of who's coming here. But those are just some big players that the past several months have been recent announcements.
Absolutely. And it's good to know that from an investor perspective, because you think, what is the demand, right? Is the demand going to be there for people who are going to want to rent the property, whether it's a lease property, whether it's a short-term property? So that kind of segues me back into our next topic. Let's talk more about kind of the difference between, a lot of people know what a standard lease rental is. Let's talk more about kind of the differences between a short-term rental and a typical longer-term lease rental.
Sure. I'd love Ashley to jump in on that.
Sure. So a standard, more long-term rental is going to be something that's typically 12 months and unfurnished. So the rate is going to remain consistent for the duration of the 12 months. Someone is paying the same rate month over month. When you talk about a short term, that's typically something that is available furnished and furnished only. And the rates on something like that here in Metro Phoenix are going to be incredibly seasonal. So we really have 3 to 4 different pockets of where that rate will be. So in the summertime, when it's the hottest, you're not going to get typically like your Airbnb type travelers, but your rate is going to be as low as it's going to get. They start to really get a little bit more expensive October, November, December. But then for someone to get a short-term rental here, January through April, it's very, very expensive. Yeah. It can be 2, 3, sometimes even 4 times the rate that it would be in the summer. So that's primarily the difference, is that 12-month mark, and also whether something is furnished or unfurnished.
So when we look at kind of comparison between short-term and long-term rentals, obviously the benefit to a long-term rental is you have one tenant, and what your rent's going to be. It's easy to kind of project what your cash flow is going to look like. The financing's very cut and dry and that sort of thing. With the short-term rentals, To Ashley's point, it's very seasonal. When we look at peak months, so it kind of, to our point, ramps in like November, December, January to April is ballistic. So it's not uncommon to have it be 2.5 times to 3 times normal market rent. And these are guests versus tenants. So the other, I think, nuance between the two is there's no tenant rights. So Arizona as a whole is extremely landlord friendly. So there's what's called the Arizona Landlord Tenant Act, and it kind of outlines, help me with the word, I just was bragged out. Basically, how the tenants and the landlords, are treated, by the way of the law. But coming from California and other states, I always kind of like say it's kind of like the Wild West out here. So it's very black and white. They don't take kindly to people being deadbeat tenants and that sort of thing. So just to kind of run through timelines here, if it is a long-term tenancy, usually rent's due on the 1st. If it's delinquent by the 3rd, if they haven't got it, they're already initiating the eviction process. Start to finish with that can be sub 30 days, getting the tenant out of the property. Cost for that's like $300 to $400, and attorney and court fee is very nominal. Obviously, when COVID hit, we had that kind of got trumped because you obviously had like the state and CDC overlays and that sort of thing. Well, with the vacation rental space, these are guests, so they do not have any tenant rights. So there's no eviction process. So if somebody's overstaying, if somebody's doing something they shouldn't be, it's pretty much calling the police and get them out of there. Fortunately, we haven't really had a whole lot of instances. Obviously, you hear these horror stories on the news about party houses and this happened and that happened. It's such a small percentage of that, but the big advantage is what we like to call it is these are lifestyle assets. So the reason why I personally started buying these for myself is I started buying in areas that I wanted to utilize the property. So my first purchase for my vacation rental property was here in a community called Ahwatukee, which is a suburb of Phoenix. It was 20, 30 minutes from my house, but we got to go out and use it for weekends, take the kids and butt it up to South Mountain. We'd go hiking, we go to our restaurants. Since then we bought some other properties in Southeast Arizona up north and a couple other locations out here. But these are tangible properties we get to use and enjoy. So depending on the investor's motivation, because we do have mixed conversations with people as far as what their motivation is. Some of them are like they're like, hey, I'm going to be coming out here for business. I want to use it and I just want to offset my expenses while I'm not here. That's great. Others are all cash motivated. You know what I mean? They're like, this is strictly an investment. I'm never coming to Phoenix. I have no desire to come to Phoenix. And then you kind of have like the hybrid where it's predominantly investment driven, but it's nice to have the ability to go out and utilize your properties. And the nice part is, tax deductible. You come out here, taking the trip, you're doing the flights, you're doing the car rental, and that sort of thing. You're checking up on it, but you lock up a tenant in there, you're never utilizing the property. So that's why we really call them lifestyle assets, because it is a wonderful, tangible asset that you get to use and enjoy while still reaping the benefits of, the investment component.
Well, and it gives you so much flexibility. And as you guys know, the cost of renting, hotel room, let's say in Scottsdale or some of those
astronomical.
And that's all, that also fluctuates too, as far as the price.
Oh, right. Because you're going to have peak season.
Exactly.
You're going to have, depending on what events are going on, because out here, we've got the Super Bowl in 2023, we've got the Barrett-Jackson, auto auction, we've got, the Phoenix Open. So there's a lot of events that are just going to fluctuate that. So if you have the option of going to your place that is making an income for you, but you can go whenever you want, it creates a lot of, good opportunities. Let's talk a little bit about, who's some of these. We don't want to call them tenants, right? Because they're not tenants per se, but let's talk about some of these renters. If they're coming in, whether it's, on a nightly, if they're doing it for a week or a weekend or a month, where are they finding the property at? I mean, who are these people? Where are they coming from? How are they finding the property?
So it's a mixed bag. So we essentially have, I call it 4 pillars out here that are the guests. So you have your traditional snowbird, tenants that are coming out here. When people think of Phoenix as a whole, I know before moving out here, because, my mom grew up in Washington, she had family out here, and, her grandparents, snowbirded out here. So my perception of Phoenix was it was a very old area. It was predominantly retirement communities. Moving out here, fast forward and kind of look at the demographic. The median age out here is 34. So it's actually very young. However, you do have a lot of pockets and concentration of people coming down from cold, miserable climates they tend to come down for longer periods of time. And they're very seasonal as far as when they come out here. So it's usually going to be during, the worst of the worst, as far as when weather starts getting bad, wherever they live. And they're often going to be looking for 1 month, 2 months, sometimes as much as 3 months at a given time. The other pillar is going to be more of your traditional Airbnb-VRBO guests. That would be like guests like ourselves, like where we're traveling. Like I just recently did, road trip cross country, and we're staying at vacation rentals and that sort of thing, like in like Nashville and all these different spots that we're staying at. So that's people traveling either with their family, with their kids, bachelorette parties, golf trips, that sort of thing, more kind of vacation driven. Those are going to be shorter terms. Those are going to generally be 3-night minimum, maybe up to a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the extent of the stay. And then given the extreme volume, I know we haven't really dove into this, but of people relocating here, you have a lot of the relocation people coming from out of state looking for homes themselves. So very rarely do people come out here and immediately seek out a long-term rental. More often than not, if somebody's coming from out of state, particularly more expensive state, their intent is to purchase. So oftentimes they're not looking to lock up a 12-month lease and then try to coordinate the house hunt. So this gives them the opportunity to have more flexibility with the timing of their move, have more flexibility with maybe sourcing a home, or if a home is being built, that sort of thing. And then obviously the corporate element where people are coming out here with companies either for part-time, for set period of time, or maybe they're going to be again transitioning and be one of those relocation people. But the stats have fluctuated the past couple of years, but it's ranged anywhere from about 260 to 300 people a day are moving to Maricopa County. So it's drastic. And one thing that was interesting that I didn't even think about or hadn't even heard of was a gal that we know that does massages here at one of the resorts here in Phoenix. She was saying that a lot of her guests that are staying there are people looking for homes, and they can't find short-term rentals for the period of time that they want, so they're forced to go and spend these extended periods of time in these hotels and resorts while they're house hunting themselves. So it was just kind of interesting conversation showing the demand of the ability to find and secure short-term rentals for any extended period of time. Because if you're here during the peak time, like we're still in the peak months right now, good luck finding something where you can lock it up for longer than a week or two. And farther that it goes out as far as your timeline for move, it just makes it more complicated. So and these are expensive rates. You're looking at hotel rates and that sort of thing. They're paying an arm and a leg. So I think it'll be interesting when we kind of run through some of the properties towards the end, because when I show what the nightly rates are, people have a hard time believing that we're getting these nightly rates. But when I have them do the math and compare it to like staying at a hotel, right, and what the cost is for the hotel and the valet service and the tax and the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it ends up being a bargain. So not to skip ahead, but that is kind of a common question we get when we're sending over properties and rental rates are like, there's no way that you're getting that in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm like, absolutely, we're getting that out here.
And we usually run those numbers more on the conservative side. When we talk about
100%.
the nightly rate and we talk about occupancy rate, we always want to give people more or less like the worst case scenario. So they're always pleasantly surprised at the end of the year when the rate is higher and the occupancy rate is higher. So we even do it conservatively, and some of the numbers really knock people's socks off.
Absolutely.
Well, and Jonas, as you mentioned before, a lot of with the amount of people relocating to the Valley, they might want to say, hey, is it going to be a fit for us? We think that we like it.
Yes.
We've traveled there. We visited there. We had a great time.
Yeah.
But, is it going to be a good fit for us? So they want to come out for a month or two and just spend some time here and see, okay, this is it. This is where we want to land. And these short-term rentals is an excellent opportunity for them to do that and not live the resort lifestyle. Because look, when you go to a resort, everybody's going to have fun. There's no downside to it.
Yeah.
But when you're living, in a house and you're living in a community and you're able to really assess like this is what the lifestyle would look like, that gives you a better idea, if it's going to be a good fit for you.
Well, you're getting a feel for the neighborhood, right? To your point, it's not resort living. The other thing is we've had people come down, and you're right, like either not sure if they're doing moving to Arizona or not, or they're not sure what area they want to be. So they'll actually come down. They're like, hey, I'm spending a week in Chandler. I'm spending a week in Mesa, I'm spending a week in Peoria, and it gives them a little sampling of the Valley to really get a good idea of what's the best fit for their family when they decide to purchase.
Well, and that's a good point. And to Jonas's point, with the median age in Metro Phoenix being 34 and having such a huge pocket of people coming in that are relocating, a lot of it is employment. And a lot of these people do have spouses and children.
Yeah.
So, for them to go and stay for 2 or 3 weeks at a hotel with, a couple of kids, it's not ideal. It's actually a mom's worst nightmare, to be honest with you. So for someone to be able to book like a 2-bedroom condo or townhome that has like a pack and play and a high chair and a washer and dryer, those are invaluable to someone that is looking to move here.
Cook your own meals, pour your own drinks,
have your snacks, have a full-size fridge. I mean, again, everyone is looking for something different and everyone's moving here for different reasons, but there's a huge population of people that are going to be catered to by having these private properties that simply a hotel just isn't in the cards.
100%. Just a reminder to our attendees, if you have any questions, we've got a lot more stuff coming up, by the way. But if you have questions in the Q&A box, give us your questions, or you can even go into the chat box and do it there as well. So let's get into kind of the meat and potatoes. Let's look at some property examples. I'm going to switch the controls over to you, Jonas. You can go ahead and share your screen and show, give us kind of an idea. And I know you put together a good selection of properties on, a few different price levels to give people an idea of what do these look like, right? What can I get? What does it cost? And what do the numbers actually look like?
We got a frozen screen on our end, my friend. Can you see us still?
I see you guys. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe switch it back to you. I don't know why, but it froze our screen. It's not able to let me move my mouse.
Okay.
Switch back to him and I'll pull the dock.
Okay.
Sorry about that, guys.
Let me know when you take over.
Actually, Jonas, you would have to make me the host again. So just switch it back over to me and then we can volley back.
That would be great if the mouse would let me move. It's completely locked. There we go.
The greatest part is we actually prepped this.
Yay, we're back.
Right, we're back. There we go. We're back.
Good.
All right, let's try this again. Sorry about that. Share screen. Okay, so we're gonna go.
There's no technical difficulties in a run through, but of course there are. Like...
never fails.
All good.
So I have my tab up there. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I don't know why that tab is not there.
One thing I'd like to mention while we have a moment, when we talk about the diversity of employment opportunity here in Metro Phoenix, not only do we have people that are moving here, like trying to, apply for those jobs and get those jobs, we're graduating some incredible talent out of Arizona State University. It's actually the largest state school, the largest public university in the United States. And then Maricopa County Community Colleges is the largest community college network in the entire United States. So we have some really, really sought after, very heavy hitting public education options here that keep our talent pool here. I mean, of course, people move out of Arizona, but people stay here. Like the weather, the opportunities, like the list is endless as to why people move here and then also stay here. I think that's something that needs to be mentioned.
For sure. Is this coming up on your screen, guys? Scott?
Yep, we've got it.
Perfect. So we put together 4 examples. One thing I wanted to do initially, I was looking at maybe doing a mix of communities and areas and that sort of thing, but I think everybody pretty much for the most part is aware of Scottsdale. So is what we want to do is we want to break out various property types and price point. That way people know that there is attainable properties in the full range. One's going to be more entry level. We're going to kind of move our way up the food chain until we hit kind of like more high-end property, and then what we consider luxury property. The first example we did, so 3 of the 4 examples are going to be more like Airbnb style. Whereas this one is actually owns a property in this exact community itself. Same floor plan. Hers is actually a little bit more done up. It was similar condition when she bought it and she did an investment. She has opted to run hers as a corporate rental. So she does 30-day rental. There's obviously advantages to that because her occupancy is north of 90% with like really high rental rates. So I'm actually going to have Ashley kind of go through the bullet points on this one, and then we'll just kind of move through the different property types.
Sure. So a property like this right now will cost you anywhere, list price will be anywhere between like 360 and maybe 380. Probably will sell at that or maybe north of that, depending upon a number of factors. Your average monthly rate is going to be about $3,000. The rate, of course, is going to fluctuate. So in the summertime, it's about $2,500 per month, and then in peak season, it's anywhere between like $4,500 and $5,000 per month. When you're talking about vacation rentals or even something with a 30-day minimum for the guests, that is an all-inclusive rate. So it's including all of the utilities, your taxes, the HOA. They pay you one price per month, and then it's up to you to kind of delegate that on the back end to like your mortgage and all that, or utilities. Two things though that are pass-through costs, and I know Jonas always mentions this to investors, is your cleaning fee. That is something that you take on from a guest, and then you would just take that cleaning fee and give it obviously right to the cleaner once the job is done. And then the secondary pass-through cost is
Rental tax.
Your rental tax. Yep. That is included. So you don't have to eat that. Your guest pays for that.
Same thing with pools. When we get to a couple of the other properties, heated pools are mandatory for like short-term rentals. If the guest wants to come out and have the pool heated for that week, that is a cost that they would also pass through as well. Yeah. So when we did the rate here, we just did it as an average. Obviously, Ashley was talking about the low to high, the low being 2,500 on the low end, the high being 5,000. So looking at a blended rate, it works out to about $3,000 a month. For the most part, Arizona is very vacation rental friendly. The governor actually passed a law, a Senate bill actually that went through, where the cities and municipalities could not put restrictions on vacation rentals. Because I know in a lot of parts of California, a lot of other parts of the country, they're able to kind of enforce and clamp down on that. There is no restrictions when it comes citywide. For example, up until before that passing, there was 0 vacation rentals in Sedona. It was all hotels, motels, that sort of thing. Sedona is now like 20, I think last stat is like now like 21% vacation rentals. By far and away the highest percentage of vacation rentals in the entire state. But it just goes from going from like 0 to 20%. The only piece that didn't get included in that legislation was homeowners associations. So one of the critical things you want to be aware of when you're searching for properties is being mindful of the property type and to make sure that it's going to be in an area that's going to be a great investment, but also being able to navigate which communities are or aren't vacation rental friendly. If there's no HOA, no problem. So 3 of these examples, 2 of these examples, there is HOA, 3 there isn't. One of them that we're going to go through next is 100% vacation rental friendly. This particular community where Ashley's at, they have a 30-day minimum, but she still mops it up. You know what I mean? So, and we'll have investors that have different appetites for that, where they're like, you know what, I'm completely okay with 30-day minimum as long as the numbers pencil. Others are like, no, I absolutely only want, Airbnb vacation rental, short of the term, whatever that looks like. So I did want to weave in one of these properties just because obviously it's a firsthand example and just kind of demonstrating, the HOA versus non-HOA scenario. That's not only with condos and townhomes, but with also single family homes. Because a lot of times we'll get people sending us properties like, oh, this property is amazing. Why didn't you send this over to me? I'm like, it is fantastic, but we don't want to get, cease and desist letters from the homeowners association. You know what I mean? So just being able to kind of work with a partner that knows how to navigate those and kind of point out the right property types for you.
Well, and to the HOA point, I don't think people realize that Metro Phoenix is kind of like the mecca for the master planned community. So you're going to see some dynamite properties at what you may feel are like really reasonable price points. And so we didn't send it because it doesn't work. The community will not allow less than 30 days. And sometimes it's even more than that. Sometimes it's 90 days. Sometimes it's a year. Sometimes, the HOAs really have the ability to kind of navigate that however they deem fit. So it's really important to have, partners on your side that kind of know the lay of the land and can really recommend some good options for you based on whatever your individual goals and needs are.
So we'll just kind of, besides the revenue portion, we'll just kind of point out a few things, because obviously with a lot of the listeners, I'm sure being from California or other states, a challenge that we have is when people are coming here and they're visiting, their lens is what stuff costs at home, right? So they're like, what gas costs at home, what property taxes, what, you know, utility costs, that sort of thing. We're very fortunate to have extremely low property taxes, number one. Same thing with insurance. You know, we don't have, you know, natural disasters and that sort of thing. There's no, you know, earthquakes and tornadoes and that sort of thing. Believe it or not, our water is dirt cheap. You know, our water is very, very inexpensive. That's one thing that blew me away when I came out here. And then, you know, our power is pretty reasonable too. The electricity does spike in summer. So obviously your off months is where you're going to have the highest rate, whereas your peak months are you're getting the most money, you're going to have your lowest rates. So we did want to include some of those costs that way when people are kind of calculating, what those costs look like. These are just specific property examples. So I wouldn't generalize it across the board. If they want to analyze properties separately, we can have, you know, a separate sidebar conversation with that and kind of break these out, because, you know, knowing what the cost of landscaping, pool service and that sort of thing kind of comes into play. So since this isn't a homeowners association, they do include things like water, sewage, trash, and that sort of thing will be blended in. The HOA is 180, which is pretty reasonable, all things considered. Combined utility costs. So for Ashley's property, they only have, they do pay their own water bill, but trash and sewer are included with the HOA. So water and power combined was about $50 a month for their water bill, and it was about $120 blended. So we're doing blended rate because, you know, this time of year it's going to be, you know, $60 a month. Summer it's going to be, you know, probably triple that. So combined, they're looking at 170. HOA is 180. Property taxes extremely low, $824 a year. And then the insurance for this one is a little bit higher, because when you look at the short-term rental policies, they're a little bit more. Yeah. So that was $942. But I mean, when
for
you kind
of
for a year, yeah.
Hey, when you Jonas, real quick,
yeah.
Are you looking at the Airbnb? Because what I'm seeing right now is the Airbnb screen. Are you looking at a different screen that has a little bit more detailed information where you're running those numbers off of?
Yeah,
I'm thinking you might be.
I thought we were looking at the same thing here. So let me try this again.
The screen I'm seeing is Airbnb.
Okay, how's that?
No, do it again.
There we go. Okay, we're back.
You got it? Okay. Sorry, I thought we were looking at the same thing the whole time. So people are just glazing over when we're just running through this. So real quick, this is the property that, or not the property, but same community, same floor plan that Ashley actually owns. And now we can kind of bring up what those costs look like. So the asking price is $375. As we talked about, her monthly average income is around $3,000 a month. And then the costs are going to be down here. So her total gross annual is right around $36,000. We did management costs at $0 because she does self-manage. When we get into the other properties, we'll kind of break out what the management costs look like for those. But utility cost, HOA, insurance are here towards the bottom, just to kind of give you an idea as far as what the total carrying cost. This does not factor in mortgage expense, because again, we don't know if the investor is purchasing cash, if they're purchasing, you know, second home, you know, how much they're putting down.
Yeah, the rate, like there's a lot of variables.
A lot of variables with that, so we'd have to run separate assumptions for that based on you know, their acquisition. So moving on, this is Casa Granada. We actually have a client that owns a property in here, Marlissa.
She crushes it.
Yeah.
This has been such a great investment for her. People are not only paying her mortgage, it's cash flow positive. We've had just a tremendous amount of equity growth within the past few years. So Casa Granada is definitely one of the communities that's really in the forefront of our brains when we're looking for clients, because there's just so much benefit to it.
So this is a townhome property. So it is older, you know, built in the 60s, but this is literally in the heart of Old Town Scottsdale. So it's actually a 4-bedroom, 2.5, but it's pretty large. Rates vary. So rates in that community range from kind of upper twos to I've seen as high as $400 a night. We did kind of on the conservative side blended rate. We put it at around $300 a night. So now we're moving to the nightly rate, whereas Ashley's example, we're looking at like a 30-day, what that looks like, moving more of like a corporate rental, you know, relocation rental. This is going to be more like a nightly rate. Not to say you can't have somebody lock it up for a longer term, because you can. Occupancy on this is just under 70%. So we're running about 69% occupancy. So that gives us a gross annual income of just a little bit under $75,000 a year, which is fantastic. If the investors have the interest in doing so, they can certainly self-manage. That it's easy enough. If they don't want to deal with it at all, we have referral partners that do the management side. The management range usually ranges from about 10 to 20%. We've got some partners that do closer to 18%, so that's why I put it at the high end of the range. The low end of the range is going to be more kind of booking reservations, payouts, that sort of thing. The higher end of the range is going to be more kind of white glove service. So that's going to have more like kind of concierge elements. They're going to be meeting the guests and check in, check out, and have boots on the ground readily available. Yeah. So there is a little bit more of a premium for that. But again, you look at the property taxes on this one for a $675,000 purchase in dead center of one of the better areas of Scottsdale. Your taxes are only $1,237 for the year. Utilities average around $220, HOA was $240, and then obviously the insurance was a little bit more on that one. Are we moving too fast? Are we moving slow?
This is fine. And one thing to mention to everybody, and Jonas,
Sure.
you and I talked about this before we jumped on.
Yeah.
We're kind of doing just like an overview level of looking at some of the financials.
100%.
As you start, if you have interest in looking at, some of these properties, we're going to dig a lot. You guys will dig a lot deeper into, here's what your return looks like. Here's what your expenses are. So we're just trying to kind of give you like an overview, but obviously we'd get a lot more detailed on any specific properties that are of interest.
We wanted to keep it as simple as possible. Some people just want the numbers. Some people are looking for the second home. Some people dig as far as, ROI, cash flow, NOI, cap rate, that sort of thing. We'd lose everybody super quick if we dove into that. So just for the sake, we're just trying to keep, the numbers as simple as possible. This is actually a property we looked at yesterday. Literally, I was in this property, previewed it. I have a walkthrough video if anyone's interested in this particular property. This one is crushing it. I mean, they put it up as a vacation rental just under a year ago. They're already cranking out. I mean, their occupancy rate is through the roof. They're low 70s. This is sold fully furnished turnkey. So blended in the deal, they are including all of the furniture, all the way down to pots, pans, TVs, linens, you name it. Again, similar area in Old Town Scottsdale, but this is a true single family detached home, 4-bedroom, 2-bath. Average nightly rate over there was looking at $475 a night. So again, blended average, that's not our low, that's not our high. But when we kind of calc out over the course of the year, what that looks like. So you look at what this thing's cranking year one. I mean, this thing is almost $125,000 for being, call it a 1-year-old, not entirely established vacation rental, because you really don't get stabilized until year 2 and 3. When you kind of have repeat guests coming in and that sort of thing. So to be, churning these numbers right out the gates, fantastic. Utilities are going to be a little higher because you'll notice when we don't have an HOA, the HOA generally includes, pool service and gated and all that sort of thing. When you have a private residence like this, the owner is going to be incurring the cost of, pool, landscape, and those sort of things. So we do have a little bit more higher utility and lawn and pool service cost. This is a mid-range one, beautiful home, fantastic. And then we go to the big boy. So believe it or not, the luxury properties actually perform the best out of all these. When you look at a cash flow standpoint, when you look at an ROI standpoint, primary reason being is, bedroom count, and, people that have money will always spend money. They want more of a posh experience. They want to have all the things, you know what I mean? They want a beautiful backyard. This home, for example, sits on 1.25 acres. It's up, by the, the Four Seasons up in North Scottsdale, just spectacular views. The other reason I like this property is this is a very Southwest style. And the reason I bring that up is when you're looking at vacation rentals, when guests are traveling, whether they're coming out to Arizona, whether they're going to California, whether they're going to Hawaii, New York, they want it to feel like the location that they're in.
Yeah.
So the properties that do unbelievably well, like, I'm not a huge fan of Southwest, you know what I mean? Like my personal taste. But when you look at what's going to perform amazingly, the more Southwest, the better. because, you know, we always use the saying, kind of the sea of sameness when you're looking at a lot of these properties. Yes, they're, you know, beautiful interiors, but you're like, I've seen the white shakers, I've seen the granite, I've seen this, that,
Gotta
and the other
stand
thing.
out. Yeah.
It doesn't stand out. There's nothing unique about it, right? If I'm coming out from New York, or if I'm coming out from, you know, San Diego or whatever, this screams Arizona. The architectural style, the interior, the features. This one we had to do projections. This was kind of a unique property because they're actually, the owners live there. They're only Airbnb one of the rooms out of this whole property. They have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath that's being Airbnb'd. It actually ranks in the top 50 rentals in Scottsdale for all of VRBO. That 1-bedroom, so you're talking maybe cumulatively combined, like less than 400 square feet, probably 350. They're grossing over $40,000 a year for that one room. So I did estimated projections, taking it over and doing the entire house. And this would be like probably year 1, not stabilized, because you would, you know, we'd anticipate, you know, rents to increase and occupancy to increase. So this is already kind of a quasi-performing vacation rental. This had owned solar, and it actually had well water, believe it or not, which is pretty unique because a lot of the homes in more of the core areas are city water. Reason why that's relevant is no water expense, 0. Utility expense is nominal. It's like less than $100, 100, 120 a month. So again, when we're running our numbers and we're looking what our costs are, you have your revenue and you have your costs, right? And you know, when you're moving those columns over. So I like this property for a lot of reasons. Obviously, being more of the high end, kind of checking the box for the Southwest style. The fact that they already have a performing, I mean, granted, it's just a portion of the home, active Airbnb that's absolutely crushing it with 1-bedroom, let alone when you kind of open up the whole home. And the fact that this had extremely low expenses overall. So it's a great property. When we get offline, we could send these links out later to you, Scott, that you can distribute to who's on here. That way they can kind of roll through and see more of the pictures, because this just has a screenshot. But I just kind of wanted to, you know, without, you know, boring everybody, just kind of do a high level overview for some examples.
This is a perfect overview. Jonas, I've got a question for you. So some of these higher end properties, will these perform better with occupancy in the off season, like summertime, or is there a difference?
There's absolutely a difference. And so your guest profile will change from summer to peak season. So oftentimes is what you see happen is you might be running this property as an Airbnb for your peak months. And then, you know, so let's say this is getting $650 a night. I had places over here that were getting north of $800 a night. I went conservative on this property. Fast forward, come summertime, these can be marketed for flat monthly rates. And usually when you roll it to like a 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, that might be somebody coming down here, maybe more of a corporate guest. And instead of doing the $650 a night, they might be spending like $8,000 for the month, $6,000 for the month, $10,000 for the month. So it rolls to a monthly rate. In addition, when you're doing longer terms like that, generally speaking, it's not uncommon to switch utility costs out of the owner's name to also drop costs. So this would be something that would be more like a hybrid where, I mean, it could in theory work for any of these properties where to boost occupancy is all you do is you're gonna go for a longer tenant for a lower rate. You know what I mean? Because I'd rather have, you know, 60% income versus 0% income, because my expenses are still rolling in. So I'd rather have, you know, lower revenue, but covering my nut and still cash flowing, and then leaving my peak months as my gravy train, as my profit.
Awesome. Those are some great examples. And like I said, we've got about 15 minutes left. So there's only so much that we can cover, but there's so much more information we can give offline to people who are interested. Linda had a question. She said, do you help buyers who are investing in investment properties? Do you help them look at their monthly cost, fees, and revenue?
100%.
Yeah, that's a huge part of what we do when working with investors. And that's kind of every investor is looking for a different type of outcome. Everyone is looking for something that's really specific to them, and a lot of the time very, very personal.
Yeah.
So regardless if you're looking for something that's just going to offset expenses because you're utilizing it as a second home, or if you are only looking at like what your cash on cash investment will be, or return, or cap rate, whatever it is to you specifically, we're actually absolutely able to help you calculate that.
So is what we did to kind of for that answer is what we do is we do like basically a needs assessment.
Yeah.
So instead of, most realtors start out and they talk with somebody and they're, are you pre-qualified and where are you looking? And they just start rapid fire and sending properties out. We do it much differently. We obviously start and ask those basic questions. We're like, what do you, what's your motivation? How are you going to utilize the property? Is this going to be a second home? It's going to be an investment property. What's most important to you? What sort of lifestyle stuff are you going to be coming out and using it? What's your budget? Because budget can be a big determination as far as what part of the valley we want to look at. All of these examples are Scottsdale, just because I wanted to give a nice spectrum for one target area that everybody knows. But sometimes we'll have somebody come in, they're like, hey, I want a 4-bedroom, 3-bath with a pool and private grotto, and my max budget is $700,000. You're not going to get that in Scottsdale, but we can turn them on to other areas where they can achieve that. And then is what we'll do is we will run through, kind of break out if they're doing financing, what those costs are, plug in the costs with, the mortgage expense, principal, interest, tax, insurance, HOA. And then we'll give them a breakout as far as what the additional supplement costs are, your utility costs, cable, internet, water, sewer, trash, that sort of thing. And then we're able to work a budget. And then that way, when we're looking at properties and we're giving them opportunities, we can calc out what the cash flow is going to be. We can calc out what their expenses are, and then they can work backwards to see what that return looks like and if it makes sense for them or not.
Awesome. Okay. Great question, Linda. Thank you so much for that. Okay. If you guys want to close out that screen,
Sure.
pass over the controls. We've got a few more items I want to make sure we get through, and I don't want to keep anybody past their lunchtime here. Let's talk about, kind of, we've looked at several different price ranges here.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about, how to finance, if you're going to finance, and also what your insurance should look like. How does insurance work with these type of properties if it's different than just a standard investment property you're going to purchase?
It is. So financing depends. Generally speaking, most are going to be doing investment financing for the most part. We do see some second home financing depending on, how frequently they're going to be utilizing the property and versus, renting it off season. We've even had clients have properties that were primary residences and then roll those to, vacation rental properties, and then we assist them to find another property. We generally recommend going the mortgage broker route as far as the lenders go. It ultimately doesn't matter to us who the client uses for their financing. The reason why we recommend the mortgage broker route is they are not tied to one lending institution. It's kind of what's that commercial when lenders compete, you win. It's kind of like that situation, right? So when you're going the mortgage broker route, the lender is able to work with a multitude of different financial institutions, and that way we can find the best rate. Couldn't be any more important than now. Obviously, the past almost 2 months, interest rates have kind of gone the other direction than we want them to. So people are very concerned with how that's going to impact their return and that sort of thing. Usually you're looking at minimum 20 to 25% down. If it's going to be investment, 25% will give you the best rate on the market. If you're doing second home, you can go as low as 10% down. That will include mortgage insurance, so that does impact your cash flow a little bit. And then from an insurance standpoint, these are definitely insured differently. So a big common mistake that we see for people that don't know really what they're doing is they'll just insure it as a straight second home policy, or they'll insure it maybe as a long-term rental policy. The problem with doing that is they don't have proper insurance coverage by doing so.
Correct.
So fast forward, let's say something happens at the property and the insurance company, sends their adjuster out, and then they find out they're running as an Airbnb. If they didn't insure it as an Airbnb, they may not have coverage. So the policies are going to be a little bit more. Generally speaking, I've seen them anywhere from 20 to 30% more over a standard investment policy, but it's a small price to pay to ensure you have proper
For
coverage.
peace of mind, you need to have the proper coverage to
100%.
cover your asset.
Yeah.
And when Jonas talks about, we always really recommend a consultation with a mortgage broker. We do have people that we work in conjunction with. So when, if you work with Epic Phoenix Real Estate Group or Phoenix Relocation Source, we're a very like whole team sort of approach.
Right.
So you have Jonas, myself as the team's lead client concierge, and then we also have a number of different partners and vendors that we offer to people just to kind of vet. Again, we don't really have skin in the game on who you use for financing. We want you to find the best opportunity for you. Same goes for insurance. We have an insurance broker that we, will refer out to people for them to shop her rates and see what she can offer. So you're not going to have to go at any of these additional steps alone just because it's not real estate. Like you have us from the start until there really is no end. Like we've built like lifelong clients and friends from doing this and really providing such an incredible level of service. So whatever it is you need, we got you.
One thing that I think is important to add is, because we get this a lot, particularly with out-of-state buyers, this feels overwhelming to them.
Yes.
Because they're like, this feels overwhelming to even local buyers. Sometimes they're like, all right, I get it. I found the property, I bought it. Now what? One thing we pride ourselves on is our massive Rolodex and our contacts. So the one thing that I think sets our team and what we do apart is we don't just help them with the acquisition and run the numbers and here's what the rent analysis looks like. We literally help them A to Z. So all the way down to painters, contractors, pool services, remodeling, you know what I mean, where we're getting vendors in. Literally is all they have to do is write the checks. And the beauty is these are Arizona prices. So a lot of this stuff is way more cost effective. So, I mean, we've had clients that we've done flips with that haven't even set foot in the state of Arizona. We've had clients that have bought vacation rental properties that like maybe the property was, 85%, but wasn't 100%. And we went in there and we added pool heaters. We got artificial turf for them. We got the property repainted. We got the place furnished for them. We got everything set up in turnkey. So that's one thing that we didn't talk about that I think is very important, because I think that's a factor that dissuades a lot of people from pulling the trigger on something like this, just because they don't know where to begin and they don't have the partners to help them do it.
It's overwhelming. It's scary.
So let's get into that a little bit. Jonas, can you stop your screen share for me? So Jerry asked this. Let's get into furnishing your short-term rental. Now we know that some rentals, you gave an example, is being sold furnished because it's been an existing nightly rental. What does it look like if you're purchasing a property? The numbers work, the location works, everything looks good. It's vacant. You have to buy furniture. Where do you start?
So in a perfect world, we have a property like the one on Diamond that you have at turnkey. That's beautiful. If we don't have that at our disposal, one thing that we've done in the past is we've actually scrubbed listings, MLS listings. Ashley hates when I task her doing this, but we have actually gone through and pulled listings that we're not even acquiring. We'll go through and we pull pending properties and we'll scrub it by properties that are being sold furnished or that were recently closed in the past week. Those properties aren't always sold. That buyer's not always buying it furnished. So is what we'll do to kind of help out our clients, because the beauty with furniture is it's a depreciating asset. It's not an appreciating asset. So let's say somebody spent $25,000 furnishing a house in Phoenix, and our clients are buying a property in Scottsdale and that sort of thing. We'll reach out to those agents, find out the details. Hey, was the property purchased furnished? No, and I'm trying to figure out what to do with this furniture. My client lives in Idaho, and and we'll offer, send those listings over to our clients and say, hey, are these of interest? And we'll say, hey, I'll tell you what, we'll give you $5,000 or $7,500 for everything turnkey out the door, and then we just make arrangements with movers to get stuff moved over, set up. Sometimes the investors, the owners will come in town to assist with that. Alternatively, we do have partners, Mike on our team. His wife actually does interior design stuff, and she does staging and that sort of thing. So if somebody wants something more custom or more unique to their taste or more high end or very specific, we have those services available. And then there is a lot of great companies here. I think American Furniture Store for Scott's doing the thumbs up.
They're awesome.
I know you have American Furniture Outlet Store.
All three of us are avid shoppers.
So it's not uber high end, but it's not low end. It's nice stuff. very reasonable. And the beauty is they set up, they basically do the white glove. They set up, they, assemble everything, you take the box out, haul off the trash. So that'll get you to about 85 to 90%. And then from there, it's just busy work doing, Target and Walmart and buying pots, pans, blenders, that sort of thing. We have an Excel spreadsheet that has a list of kind of what, a checklist as far as what needs to be done. And again, we have resources to help with that. So let's say you're like, okay, great, I've got, American Furniture Warehouse handling that, but I need a personal shopper to go out and buy this stuff and just, bill me for their time and cover it all. We can do it. So
yeah, lots of options.
Lots of options. Yeah.
Awesome.
We always try to go the most cost-effective route as possible, but if that's not at our disposal, then we go to plan B, plan C, and that sort of thing. So.
Right on. Okay, we've got about 5 minutes left, a couple more topics. If anybody has any questions, throw them into the chat box. Let's talk about property management. So, you talked about a couple of examples where you can manage it yourself if you're local, or maybe if you're not local, or the option to do, property management company. I think you talked about, the varying rates of what some of those charge, but is there anything else that we haven't talked about related to property management?
I'll let Ashley jump in. She manages her own and she works hand in hand with a lot of our management partners. So
yeah, thank you. So someone that is going to charge 10%, it's really going to be just a marketing platform opportunity for you. If you live out of state and you only own maybe 1 or 2 properties, that may be enough for you. You may be able to self-manage and it's not overwhelming. But if you're looking for something where it's going to really provide that white glove service, like Jonas had said, like meet your guests at the property, schedule your cleaners, have a 24-hour handyman on call, like that's going to cost you more of like that 20-25%. If you have a true Airbnb, something where you're doing like a 3-night minimum, a lot of the time owners are just really going to be utilizing Airbnb and VRBO. There are a number of other websites that your property can go on, but the majority of short-term rental owners will get the bulk of their bookings from those 2 sites specifically. If you're doing a 30-day minimum, something like that is going to go on a number of different sites because it is more of like a 30, 60, 90-day type of client looking for that. But yeah, I think someone's ability to self-manage is going to be based on proximity and based on how many units they own.
The very first property I ever bought that was a vacation rental, this is how I managed. The beauty is with the platforms they have now, and they have way more integration apps that work with kind of syncing calendars and scheduling and managing payouts and stuff like that. I managed mine the first 6 months. It's not complicated,
right? And
I'm not trying to undersell it. Like, just it's not complicated. It's just my normal 9 to 5, which isn't a 9 to 5. It's more like a 60 to 70 hour a week deal. Overtook that. So the key with self-management or any management or finding a management partner, just like anything, is speed to lead. If somebody inquires about something and you have somebody coming in asking, for an upcoming booking or a question about the property, you need to get back to them promptly. So here I am in this webinar, and let's say I have my Airbnb guests, raise their hand, hey, I'm interested in this property, and it takes me an hour to get back to them. Hour doesn't sound like a lot of time.
They book something else.
People are very impatient.
Yeah.
So it's not that you can't do it. It's just knowing your personality and whether that's, something you'd be wanting to do. I mean, you can save a lot of money going that route. It's about having your dream team in place. So you can be in California, you can be in, Colorado, you can be anywhere. As long as you have your realtor partners, as long as you have your cleaning partners, your handyman, and your general service partners. And if you don't, we have those resources. If you have those in place and you have this smartphone and are minor tech savvy, you can do this on your own. If that's not your cup of tea, or if you're just bogged down with your life, your job, then yeah, I would look at doing outside management, outside services. But it's not complicated, is my point.
Let's talk real quickly about cleaning.
Yep.
So
sure.
How do you hire somebody, whether it's a 30-day rental or a minimum
Yep.
3-night
Yep.
overnight rental? How does the cleaning aspect of it work?
So cleaning, I encourage redundancy. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't just rely on one cleaning partner, because they're not just working for you necessarily, right? So you might have a move in, move out, where you kind of get your wires crossed a little bit, as if you have a guest moving out and moving in the same day. So that, let's say checkouts at 10, check-ins at, or 11, check-ins at 3. You got a 4-hour block to get that thing whipped out. So if your cleaning partner is not on point or they're homesick or whatever. So I actually have 3 different cleaning people that I have. I have my A list, I got my B list, and I got my C list. Fortunately, I don't have to get down to my C list that often, but I always want to make sure that I have proper coverage. Depending on what platform you're using, you can link the cleaning partners on there, so they are getting the notifications when reservations are coming in. Yeah, the big thing is just making sure that you have proper coverage, because what will sink a ship faster than anything else in vacation rentals is poor reviews. So let's say the cleaner didn't get in there in time, or there's wet towels in the laundry room, or there's, they find a hair on their pillowcase. Stuff like that is not your friend when it comes to reviews. So it is mission critical to make sure you have somebody, the pool's looking sparkling blue, the floors are swept, it looks nice. If you want to add a nice touch and have the cleaner drop off a little gift basket, a welcome basket, little touches like that, they don't cost a lot of money, by all means. But regardless if you're using outside manager or self-management, your dream team is your do or die. You know what I mean? So,
because really in any of these scenarios, people are paying for an experience.
100%.
And if they get to your property that they're paying $400 a night for, and the baseboards haven't been cleaned in a year, and there's hair, you would be horrified, just like you would be if you were at a hotel. It's no different. And actually,
you have an expectation, right? This
right,
is what
and
it should look like, and
right, and the expectations are actually probably higher when you're at an Airbnb or VRBO, because big corporate hotels, you can kind of let some of that stuff go within reason. But if you're going to a private property, your expectation is that house has been cleaned from top to bottom, and it is pristine.
For sure. Last point that I want to talk about, and again, we don't want to get into legal advice. And as Jonas mentioned, they've assembled a great team of cleaners, of property managers, everybody else. But the biggest piece that I think is also preparation, because you have to make sure that you're prepared from a legal standpoint, and as we talked about from an insurance standpoint. Sure. Talk about a little bit about how to, as you would protect any large asset, what's some advice you would give to people running and operating this type of a property to protect their assets, to protect themselves?
So we already talked about one important one, which is obviously the insurance, making sure you have proper insurance. Another big one is, again, you're going to have guests coming in and out. You're going to have all sorts. You don't necessarily know these people. It's not the same. I mean, there is vetting measures in place with all the platforms, but it's not the same level as like a long-term rental. We always encourage setting up properties in LLCs, and in a perfect world, setting up properties in individual LLCs. If it's a cash transaction, that's no problem right out the gate. If it's a finance transaction, it's not impossible. There's just a couple more moving parts to structure it as such. Generally, most lenders, you need to check with your lender, but a lot of times lenders will not permit the property to be financed under the LLC initially. You will need to kind of get permission. Like for example, on my properties, I reach out to my lenders on advice from our attorney that set up our trust and LLCs, and was just said, hey, I've got some rental properties. We're looking to move these over to the LLC. The big one that they have is the due on sale clause, because if you do that without their permission, in theory, in your mortgage documents, they can trigger where they can call the loan. So it's just having that communication with the lender. They understand, that there's, risk. They probably don't want you to get sued as much as you don't want to get sued, because, if you get, wiped off the map, that's to their detriment as well. Sure. So it's just opening the lines of dialogue with them and just explain the situation. And then they usually have different departments where they'll basically approve that. Once you have that in place, setting up an LLC, not expensive, you know what I mean? Probably sub $400, sometimes less. Way worth it. Yeah. Exactly. And then moving it over. So sometimes we can do that in tandem. If it's cash, we can do it at closing. Sometimes we can do it in tandem, kind of with dual recordings with the deed. Other times it can be done after the fact. So if it's done after the fact, there's a company out here called Doc Prepper. Very inexpensive, you know what I mean? Where basically they can, redo the deed under the LLC, or if you decide to add a spouse or business partner or whatever. I mean, we're talking like, a couple $100 to, for the recording and their services. It's just making sure you have, proper coverage in place. It's also making sure, health and safety stuff. So if it's an older property, negligent stuff, you know what I mean? So just making sure everything's tip top on the property. But yeah, the big ones, insurance, the big ones, you know, LLCs and that sort of thing. That's probably about as far as we can get in the conversation without kind of tipping into,
Yeah,
you know,
well, exactly. Yeah, and I think the point is just to say those are some,
yeah.
some great points,
Mhm.
but to, talk to an attorney about how to protect yourself,
100%.
because here's the thing, everybody's situation is going to be a little bit different, and
100%.
how you're buying it, who you're buying it with, the purpose of the property, how it's going to operate, so you want to make sure that you have something customized to what
Yes.
your goals are. So, okay, well, hey, we did pretty well on time. I think we're at
Good.
12:35.
That was pretty good.
We've covered
Aside from a couple rocky technical difficulties, which we
That's
thought
all right.
Hey,
That's okay.
it wouldn't be fun if we didn't have to struggle
That's right.
somewhere through it. So yeah, hey, Jonas, Ashley, I want to thank you guys. I mean, this is some great
Thank you.
information. Obviously, we could take this into a 4 or 5 hour session. There's a lot of information to put out there. I think this has been a really good overview. But
Yeah.
for people who are interested in saying, you know what, I've liked what I've heard so far, and
Yeah.
I'm interested, maybe there's an opportunity that you can custom tailor to myself.
Yeah.
Happy to put that together. So email us info@leavingthebayarea.com, info@leavingthebayarea.com. And Tiffany, thank you very much. She just gave us some kudos there. And so happy to have a consultation, you guys would with anybody who's interested in kind of seeing how we can put together a solution that might work for them and explore this a little bit further.
One last point I want to make before we jump off is kind of as far as the process of somebody raise their hand and they want to look at properties. A very, very high percentage of our clients are out of state, out of area, even out of country. So depending on where they're located, obviously our market's moving extremely fast. We've got a low inventory problem, just like much of the country. I mean, we can plan trips out here. Like right now, we have a trip or we have a client that's out here from Santa Clara this week. We're running around with him looking at properties. We got a client in from Denver. Not everybody that's feasible, or oftentimes trying to line up when they're going to be here for those couple of days and find the perfect property can somewhat be a challenge.
Yeah.
So we've been leveraging video for years, even before the whole COVID thing and that sort of thing. So we can do, set up a Zoom meeting, either a phone call, just kind of do, like I said, the needs assessment and
tours,
exactly. And then, if like, hey, we can't make it out there, or find the property for us, and then we'll come out during due diligence, because oftentimes that works better.
Yeah.
So we'll go run around, we'll source the properties, we'll run the numbers, what the revenue, what the expense is. When we find the property they like, we'll go run out, we'll do the walkthrough video for them. And we're doing the video, we're pointing out the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're not pointing out all the pretty stuff. We want to get there where their eyes and ears, because they're not here. So if there's structural stuff, if there's power lines, if there's stuff that we need to make them aware, we're going to point everything out. If that looks good, then we move on to the next step. Then we run to comps. We look at what the rental comps are, what the resale comps are. Everything's DocuSign. We have clients that have bought that have never even set foot in the state of Arizona that own multiple rental properties out here. And then of course we have people that are more hands-on, that want to come out, see it, feel it, touch it, and everything in between. So I just wanted to bring up that point as far as next steps and what fits kind of the individual client's comfort level. We can service however they like.
Baby steps, and it starts with a simple conversation. Right?
That's it.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah, we don't make people feel a little bit overwhelmed. So okay, awesome. Thanks again to everybody who joined us. And again, if you'd like to get a copy of this, just go ahead and let us know.
Appreciate you,
Jonas. You guys are wonderful. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Scott. Thank you.
Thanks for
everybody
having us.
have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks for joining, guys.
Bye, guys.
Bye.